And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. We'll dive right into the special town meeting. Brief discussion on it. We had the one item we were trying to get some more information about was the USDA loan for the sewer department for improvements down there. And just between email chains and signals getting crossed, we never got the updates we were looking for to figure out what that was for. And it was the last item on the warrant, so we dropped it. What it is a matching loan from USDA. We're expecting to get at least 40% matching money back on it.
Did you see that in writing anywhere?
I didn't, but I'll take them at their word for that. I don't think they're going to lie to us about it.
Well, I think that they said that was their hope, but it was, they wouldn't really know until the
They were hoping for a 60
Yeah.
to 75, which is
Yeah.
unprecedented. They said it looks like it should be about 40.
Okay.
But in any event, it's improvements that do need to be done and have to be undertaken down there. We know a lot of the system is old and outdated and needs to be repaired and or replaced. The loan is something that, as a select board, we have to put on and get approval to take the loan out. However, it will be paid for by the sewer enterprise fund. So although the town technically has to approve the loan, and we have to sign for the loan, the town doesn't pay for it out of the coffers. It comes from the fund for the sewer, the enterprise fund, in its entirety. And the grant side of it pays back once we do the project and fund it. Then they pay the town back once it's done, whatever percentage they get from the grant.
The only thing that is worrisome to me is that, number one, there's no information from the sewer commission. Maybe they have this and just didn't think that we wanted it at this point. But if we're going to take out, say they paid 40%, they want $6.5 million, okay, for us to hopefully borrow. If that's all coming out of the enterprise fund, do they have a reserve in the enterprise fund, or is this going to be new costs to people who are users? Is your bill going to go way out of sight? I mean, I'm just worried about what,
right.
Nobody gives you any information. If I was...
It's frustrating, and it's frustrating that we're under the gun for this. The reality is, the grant has a waiting list, and we're on the top of that list. Once I think it was federal funds are looking at or approved for this, our project will be a go, be the first one to receive funds. If we haven't approved it and we wait till annual town meeting for the approval, if the funds were approved by the Fed before then, they'll pass us by because they're not ready, and then we'll go to the bottom of the list and they'll start awarding grants to other people, and there may or may not be funds left for us at that point. So it's important to put it out before the town. It will go to special town meeting, and the town has the right to vote either way on it. It's their choice, not ours. But we are going to make every effort to put this back on and reschedule a town meeting and warrant, probably a week later than we were planning before, because we have to post for 2 weeks still. We'll see what Jessica has to say from talking to town council. I'm pretty sure we can open a warrant this evening and close it later, and put this item on the warrant. And that would allow us to meet next Monday and make sure it's all printed up and begin the advertising, which gives us 2 weeks to advertise and have a meeting on the Tuesday following.
The only thing, I agree with the fact that we should put this on the warrant. I do not think it is appropriate for us to put this on the warrant without requiring the sewer commission, who has access and information specifically about this loan and how it's going to be repaid, that we have either a public hearing as well as a presentation by the engineering firm at the meeting. I think they plan on having a presentation at the meeting, but I think it's important. This is a lot of money. I mean, I'm not a user. I'm sitting way up there on the hill. But for people who are users, they have to be concerned about what this is going to do to the sewer rate. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but we should do it with as much transparency as we can.
Right, and this way, as you said, I think if they show up at special town meeting without an engineer to talk about it, without explanation, but it's likely to get voted down. And it's.
I know, but that's not a good thing either.
It's not a good thing either, but we can't do the job of the sewer commission. We can't tell them how to do their job.
Well, we can certainly urge and encourage them to.
If we don't start it tonight, then we're putting this off even later. So
I absolutely agree that we should put this on the warrant for this special town meeting. And I think we should communicate directly with the sewer commission of our desire to have an open forum to discuss this, not only at that, you know, that special town meeting, but make this information available to people before that, whether we do something at Ruggles Lane or in the town hall or
We can
whatever.
try, it's all for short notice, we're talking about trying to do this meeting in 3 weeks.
Oh, I understand, I
So
mean,
whether or not they can get something out would be nice. It'd be nice if
Well,
they
they-
did a meeting, even the night before would be nice.
look, if they do not have this information already, shame on them. They must have this information.
I'm
It's
sure
just that
they
they probably just haven't, you know, garnered the, you know, enthusiasm to say, oh yeah, we should tell the town about this. I think they just say to me, oh, we'll just pay for it out of enterprise funds. Okay, maybe they have a ton of enterprise funds sitting there, and then whatever, I don't know. But I just worry about making sure that we give the sewer commission the idea that we hope and expect them to provide the community with good information. Because how can we recommend this on town meeting floor when we don't have a clue about how much it's gonna cost the average taxpayer who's on the sewer line?
Very good.
I
was gonna get to
agree with,
Dylan.
Dr. Marshall, that we need to get some more information for ourselves so we can make a recommendation as a board, and for anyone interested in how, you know, if the town is going to be borrowing to the tune of millions of dollars, then we certainly need to not shy away from letting people know exactly what it's all about. Do we have time? Originally we had our special plan for Tuesday, March 1st. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So now we'll be bumping it ahead. Were you thinking bumping it to Tuesday the 8th? Because
No,
in that case,
The 15th.
Nope, the
sewer
8th.
commission could come, or the 15th.
We were
They
talking
could
the
come
8th,
to
one week
our
later.
meeting on the 7th and present at our next meeting if that is available to the sewer commission. We're all planning on being here, and everyone will be tuning in from home, and this is a good format for that.
Well, I think it's important that the Budget and Finance Committee join us in a joint meeting to have this presentation, because they're gonna be sitting at this special town meeting too, and that recommendation has to also be hands. And I want this to pass. I want this to be something that the community can access the USDA funding, but I just wanna make sure we're not buying a pig in a poke, and we say, oh yeah, let's borrow $600 plus million, and if somebody were to say to me, well, what's this gonna do to my, you know, my sewer rate? And I go, I don't know. Well, how much is money in the enterprise? I don't know. I mean, I think they would say, Maureen, you're just an idiot. Let's try to get the information. I just am, I want it on the town meeting warrant. As you say, Greg, you're absolutely right. We should stay in the queue, but we need to get more information out to the public soon.
Well, we did talk about at the sewer commission meeting, the dates, and we talked about pushing it out to the 8th, which would only be 1 week later.
Yeah.
Because their concern was very much like, oh, well, now we can't do it because we blew up the special town meeting. And I said, we're pushing it out a week. It's not, 7 difference makes a difference, and they should have said something sooner anyways. But to that end, if we do push it out to the 15th, it does allow us to have a board meeting on the 2nd. I mean, pardon me, on the 6th.
Yeah.
7th?
Seventh.
7th. I'll get it right, the 7th. And we have a chance to discuss it then, sort of have a hearing on it prior to the meeting. So I'm okay with setting the meeting date for the 15th.
Okay, I'm certainly, I'm not opposed to that. I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure we get information to the community.
Sure. And Dylan, that date sound all right with you for the 15th?
Yep.
The Ides of March, though, be careful.
Okay. A couple questions. Sammy, we're first.
Yeah, I'd be interested as a citizen to know how much this money is costing us at a rate, considering that we have no bond rating, considering that sometime years ago, we had AAA bond rating. And that might go to make us consider what we should go forward towards. Should we go forward to paying money for the sewer and be strapped because we're paying a significant amount of interest? Or maybe we should go for working on, as speedily as possible, getting a bond rating like we had before, so that later on it would cost us a lot less money for interest.
We'll hopefully find out a lot of this stuff in 2 weeks, and on the 7th, we have a meeting. Kathy, you had something?
Yeah, I'm really disappointed that the chief and the DPW superintendent didn't come to that last meeting because they could have resolved it then. Because normally when you've got a big project like that, you're letting every board know and the community know months in advance, because it is such an incredible cost to the community. And frankly, when we did that project 34 years ago, so obviously all of these parts are, need to be new again, you know, and they need to be taken care of. So that's not the question. But they should have been in here and explaining it. And I'm assuming they should have been explaining at the DPW meeting every month for the last 12 months to tell you how they're coming along with their engineer in preparation for this meeting that's taking place in March.
That was part of our discussion at the DPW commission meeting, that, you know, frankly, we felt that we should have heard about this before now.
Yeah,
That meeting is supposed to be a commission meeting that entails water, sewer, and highway.
correct.
So you'd like to see updates from the water and sewer at that meeting for the whole board, not just discuss highway as we often do. And we did discuss that, and hopefully that's going to change in future meetings, especially because of this. The last time this was discussed was probably just about a year ago, when Hardwick was having their sewer issues.
Yes,
And they were looking at our town as one of the possible avenues to pump
correct.
literally all theirs, well, I think 80%, there's two
Yeah.
different breaks in the sewer, pump their sewage to us. And they'd started this project, then what we needed for upgrades and stuff to encompass that whole project, and it got too high of a price tag for the state authorities that were looking into funding it for them, and they went a different way. At that point, I thought that project was dropped. I didn't understand they were still moving forward with plans for upgrades and things to the facility.
Yeah.
But they have been apparently right along. I too am disappointed we didn't hear about it until here.
And just two more things. One of the things is, when that original project was done, it was 90% federally funded and 50% state funded. So our remaining costs, they were borne between, the users had to pay a betterment fee, and they paid 25% of it, and the other 75% was borne by the town. I'm just telling you that is what happened then, and that was what one of the rules were that was created under the town government back in 1988 or something, 85 or 88, we're doing that. And just before the special town meeting that you're gonna have March 15th, sometime in the previous 6 days, there has to be a meeting with the finance committee to explain everything. Surely they will be there at that meeting, if this is to go forward, to explain everything to the finance and to anybody who shows up.
I understand that their engineering company is going to be doing some sort of a presentation
Right.
at the special town meeting.
Right.
But my concern is, I think we have to have a clearer information for the select board and
Correct.
for the budget and finance committee if we're supposed to sit there and make a recommendation. I mean, I worry that this has been not very transparent. And I don't think anybody's trying to pull a fast one. I just don't think that the process, it lends itself to a good, transparent discussion.
Right, and hopefully we will get everything we need in 2 weeks and get the discussion rolling. And that'll give the finance committee an opportunity to meet, say, the following Thursday and present it to the town
Yep.
the way they would typically do before the meeting.
So I would make a motion that we, we would take the USDA loan request from the sewer commission, place that on the annual warrant, or I should say the special town meeting warrant, and also the fire department ladder service that we need to address more quickly than waiting to the, the town meeting in June, so that the fire department ladder service also be added to that warrant.
Before we have any second on that, I'd like to think that procedurally, perhaps we should establish the town meeting date officially.
Okay.
I make a motion, we establish a special town meeting on Tuesday, March the 15th.
Second.
We have motion as second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now I would say that we would make a motion, we open the warrant
So moved.
right now and close the warrant at the end of this, adjournment of this meeting tonight.
So moved.
Okay, I will second it. Motion to second to open the warrant now, immediately, and close it at adjournment this evening of this meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Now you can go ahead with the articles.
Just the open warrant should include the USDA loan of the amount to incur debt of $6,500,000, which was recently reported to me by the sewer liaison, and the fire department ladder service. Do you have a number for that, Jessica?
Yep. About $20,000.
$20,000 for $20,000 to be included on the warrant.
Do we need to find the exact number for that before we move forward on this motion?
Well, you can just say to raise an appropriated amount to, not to exceed $20,000.
Okay, great. I misheard. I didn't know if that was an estimation or if that was the number or the ceiling.
I think we need
I'll second the motion.
I think we need to make it a solid number. I'd rather just say 20,000, and if we don't use it, we don't use it. But I don't want to leave it open-ended and find out that it's not legal without a solid number, just in case.
Okay, well, so the total is $19,561. That's what all of those line items equal.
Okay.
20,000.
20,000. So if we could amend that or just restate the motion perhaps with just a rigid 20,000 and the loan amount of that.
I would restate the motion if that's helpful, that we place on the warrant the request to incur debt to the amount of $6,500,000 by the sewer commission, and that we include on the warrant also the fire department ladder service improvements that we are required to make for the $20,000 amount requested.
Okay.
Second those motions.
Okay, motion is second to place those two articles on the warrant as stated. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Very good. Did we have any other requests from any other departments, or did you notify the departments this time beforehand?
Yes, I sent them to all of the departments.
Okay. Very good. So we'll move on from that for now. We have our personnel, Kayla Phillips, acting youth service librarian. What do we have there? This is a new hire, or?
No, we just have an employee who is going out on maternity leave, so for the duration of the time that she is gone, the librarian, the library director has requested that the employee who's covering for the employee who's going out on maternity leave get that bump in pay.
Just for the
Duration
okay.
of the, so it'll be about 8 weeks worth.
Some 1576 to 1794 an hour.
I would think maybe we should note on there that this is a temporary, in this document, that it's a temporary raise, and her salary shall go back to 1576 upon the return of the person on leave.
Right.
So we look for a motion including that,
I
and we'll
move that
move on it.
we approve the request of the librarian, Carol Witt, to appoint, what's her name? Kayla Phillips as the substitute for a person on leave, and that her salary be changed from $15.76 to $17.94 for the period of time she acts as the substitute. Subsequent to that, her salary will revert to the original $15.76.
Thank you. I will second that. So we have a motion to second to approve this pay increase for the acting youth services librarian. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Aye.
And I have, what, two documents with the same?
Thing, I think.
Nope, there's
So
another,
then we're seeing also another wage authorization for the same employee, I guess, starting March
13th.
March 13th, yes, sir.
March 13th. Oh, I'm looking at that 2019, getting
So they're moving it to a step increase after,
It's just,
Got a lot of paperwork here.
I think it's just because, she hits an anniversary date. So essentially,
well, that would apply to her $15.76 when she goes back to it. It doesn't apply to a
Yeah.
$2 bump now, then another hour, another
Yeah.
dollar bump, so.
okay,
I don't intend to bump her on her temporary, because if we start that, then she needs a year or two at that position to get a bump.
right.
So I would say we'll save that bump for when she goes back to her
Yeah.
other number,
I agree.
and we'll bring it back again then,
That
please.
makes sense.
All right, we have DPW, Chris Shabbat, looks like we're gonna have, part-time worker step 2 to part-time worker step 3, moving from $21.62 to $24.99 an hour.
Okay, it says here, current position is a truck driver, and he's going to move to a proposed position of assistant chief water operator.
Right, I think, are you
Well, what's
looking
a
at the
P-
police
what's a-
officer?
What's a
So Jason
PW,
Pimentel.
what's a PW1 step 2, what's that mean? Oh,
That's just part of the, like where he falls on the,
so it's not a
The
part-time
union.
worker, it's just,
No,
these just, we have the full-time job.
yeah, PW is what the DPW
Right.
union uses for their compensation plan.
So it looks like he's going to go to $24.99 an hour because he's changing positions.
Right,
Truck
Right,
driver, skilled labor to where he was step 2.
so he's going from highway to water, this looks like?
Yes, looks like.
Or is he a driver for, I assume he's not a driver for water.
No, I don't think so.
No, it's just really just a position change for
Yeah.
him.
yep.
But it's an increase in salary for the
Yeah.
different job.
Yeah, the assistant water chief, yeah.
Okay.
All right, look for a motion on that then.
So move.
Motion to second to approve the pay increase with the job title change for Chris Shabbat. Any further discussion? Here none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Now, the police, we have a new hire,
looks
which
like,
is a part-time officer, at the rate of $21.50 an hour, and the hours will vary as he needs to utilize them. That officer's name is Robert Brooks.
move approval of the
Part-time officer Robert
part-time
Brooks.
officer recommended by the chief of Warren. His name Robert Brooks, at $21.50 per hour as needed.
Second that motion.
Motion to second to approve the part-time officer Robert Brooks. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, use of town property. Greg's Restoration, Car Show, and Swap Meet, again.
I thought that was you for a moment, but then I looked more carefully at it.
No. This is annual event he does uptown, and it draws a pretty good crowd.
It appears that that has been signed off by the commissioners from the Felton Field, so I would recommend approval.
No, second that motion.
Motion to second.
Motion.
Motion to second to approve the event for Greg's Restoration. Jessica, is this complete?
Yes.
It is complete. That's typically my only question. Any further discussion on it? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
I,
Aye. Easy enough. Springhill Broadband
MOU.
MOU. What is going on with that?
So when we entered into an agreement with DG Matrix for Springhill Road Broadband, part of the DG Matrix's goal was to have us use Peter Sham's agreement with National Grid and Verizon to use the permits they have on the poles, which will save the town $3,000 a year, because otherwise we would have to pull our own, permits and agreements with National Grid and Verizon, which one is just a time-consuming thing to do, and then also it would cost us about $3,000 a year. So Peter Shadam, they worked with their attorney to draw up this agreement so we can work underneath their existing agreement with National Grid and Verizon.
I would
Okay.
recommend approval, but only after our attorney reviews the document.
Do we have a copy of that someplace here? 'Cause it's
It's
not finding it in my papers anywhere.
it says memorandum of agreement on the top of it.
Yeah, I'm not finding it in here, unless it's stapled to something else.
Sorry.
Is there a rush on that, or can we do it in next meeting?
If the next meeting is gonna be next Monday, I think we can.
Well, it'll be probably,
Next Mondays would be 3 in February.
Well, you guys will have to sign the warrant.
yeah, if we're doing the warrant on the 15th, yeah, we still need to have a meeting between that, so we'd have to do it
Okay.
next Monday.
But I would just say that the MOU, obviously, we sat here and had a lengthy discussions about this, that I would move approval subsequent only to our attorney's review. And if the recommendation for us next week is to sign it, we'll sign it.
Right, and I still like to look at it, and, you know,
Yeah.
the more eyes that look at it, the better before we
Yeah.
go ahead and sign it, so. We'll make sure we have that for next Monday, and have it reviewed, and we will table it for this evening. Anything else for other business?
Nope.
Okay, we'll go to the,
Mr. Chair, did we table, do we move to table that?
yeah, we're gonna meet next Monday to sign the warrant officially, because we want to let Jess get printed up and we can sign it. So if we're gonna meet anyways, we can do a little housekeeping like that at the same time, so we can actually look at it, make sure the attorneys have read it before we get into it.
Very good.
Okay, so old business discussion on 1000 West Street updates.
We do have something here, I think it's from Mr. Andrews, I think. Is that from Mr. Andrews? I would say that his handwriting is just like Greg's. I can't read a darn thing.
Basically, his letter just addresses the two upcoming agenda items that
Okay.
I've placed to discuss
Right.
for today.
Okay.
So the issue with 1000 West Street is that there is a discrepancy between the number of acres that are listed in the deed's description of the property, which had originally been done without a formal survey, and the number of acres that the town shows the property having. And this discrepancy contributes to the delay in the land court process, because when something goes to land court, they need to make sure that everything, everything matches where it needs to. So the attorney that we use to go through this process has to do a little bit more legwork in the assessor's department to find out where this discrepancy lies, and then how to mediate it so the land court process can move forward.
Well, do you have from that attorney any idea about timeframe?
No.
Can we find something about timeframe so that the people who've been waiting for this for like a long time can say,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah, I've asked for monthly updates at this point. It's hard to judge a timeline because of the way that land court moves. It kind of moves at its own pace. So,
I'd be suspicious that they're gonna need a survey if there's already discrepancy, the only way to settle that typically is a survey. So it's probably gonna come back to us having to survey the property before we can register this with the
Well,
courts.
I just feel that, we owe the people who've been concerned and complaining about this, that somehow for us to do our legwork to make sure we're pushing it forward, if it has to come back to us, then get it back to us and do what
Right.
we need to do.
yeah, and there is, there is the potential that if this issue isn't mediated, that the whole process might have to start over again. So we're hoping that the attorney is able to find where the discrepancy is and then, move forward.
Does he understand we're wanting to do this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
My experience with land court's been, if you do survey it and you pay a surveyor and pay the surveyor to pin it, that'll take precedent in land court over someone's unsurveyed documents, so I'd be prepared for that, and be prepared that we may
Well,
have to
I
get a
just-
surveyor out there and.
I just hope we can move the process along by,
Right, I'm just calling out the fact
Yeah.
that that may be necessary and that may expedite it quite a bit.
yeah.
It's not cheap to have something surveyed and staked. That's probably about $1,000 a point. So
Right.
that can be expensive, but
Yeah, it is what it is.
it's gonna get the issue moving and settle it. Yes, Sam?
Is that property the property with the burned out
Yes,
trailers?
yes.
Well, I would like to make a suggestion, is that this has been a land court for a long time. It's been, everybody's playing with it, and we don't get a result. In the interim, we're having some issues. I would like to maybe suggest that you contact the Board of Health and someone puts up some fences to protect the view from everybody, and also the fences will protect other people from going on the property and falling down and ending up suing the town of Barre, because the town of Barre and their attorneys have been dragging their feet. And we don't know how long this takes, but you all mentioned that this could take another 5 years.
Well, I hope not.
In the interim, yeah, but what, as before, I gave you a name of an attorney, and I called him myself, and he says land court sometimes takes a long time. So I as a citizen would hope that the town would be a little proactive and put some fencing up so nobody sees what's going on.
Well, the concern that I would have would be that it's an attractive nuisance, and that we would have the Board of Health look at it from that perspective and make some recommendations. But obviously, for every, we have at least a list here, and I don't think it's exhaustive, but we have, what, about 20,
25.
25 homes or dwellings that's on this list that we need to pay attention to as
Right, but
well.
they're not in that condition.
I don't know. I don't know because I haven't, I agree with you that it is bad. And that if the Board of Health could help us and assist with that, that would be great. I know that there are some that we have had the Board of Health look at, and a little bit of pressure, and they, old cars get moved and those kinds of things, but boy, it's tough to get some response. And, the town, the liability of the community, if this land is just totally vacated and is ours, then that's a different story.
Yes, Neil?
So did I hear you just say that it is ours?
Well, it isn't technically ours until the land court situation is
Right,
complete.
So then you said it was gonna have to be mediated. Can you tell me about who would be mediating?
I don't think it's mediated, I think it's going to
What was
have,
the word you used? I'm just-
I did not use that word.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I believe
Someone
Jessica
did,
used
yeah.
that word. I don't believe that, I think our attorney has to go in and see if it meets the law. And if it doesn't meet the law, it's going to come back to us to probably have a new survey done or whatever. But we don't know that until this attorney actually gets in there and does whatever it is he needs to do in land court to give us that information. I don't have that information.
So timeline-wise, I understand it was filed in land court in December of 2017. And has there been a paper trace on this at all? Or did it just say sit totally fallow and nothing was done about it and it was not addressed whatsoever since December of 2017?
I don't know, one thing, Jessica wasn't there, I wasn't there, I don't even know if you were here, Greg. All I know is that our recent efforts on Jessica's efforts to figure this out basically said, yeah, it's been here, but a lot of them have been here. During COVID, they pretty much didn't do much at all in land court. So, and then why is ours stalled? It's stalled because of this. Why didn't the attorney say to us, hey, this is the problem, here's how you can fix it? I think that nobody pays much attention to any of this, seems to me. I mean, I don't even mean just from Barre. I think that this is a thing that's a problem, and nobody...
Problem where? In the state?
Yeah.
Statewide.
This is just, and I would suspect that, our maybe some help could be from an Ann Goby, to sit down with an Ann Goby and see if there can be some pressure to bear on this particular part of the shall we say, the legislative process that, needs to get moving. Because we've got a list, And I don't
Yeah,
think
I'm
it's
not concerned
exhaustive.
with this, I'm sure the town is, but right now I'm looking at that property at 1,000, that's where my concern lies. And, you know, just say from 5 years ago, nothing, no paperwork, no notification, and COVID only walks the dog for a few years here.
I agree.
And so what happened to the rest of the time? And
I would have to say,
well, I would like to have that track,
oh, it's
you
very
know,
difficult.
for some transparency, so that I have some indication that something will be done. 'Cause
Okay. I think we can start to
when you
track it
referred to
from
how
now.
many years, it was 12 years ago.
I hear you.
12 years when I initiated this. So, you know, now to be saying, well, we'll have to find out, I want to find out now. I want to know what's going on a timely manner. I would be notified. If there's going to be a legal notice, I would like to be copied. I think that's only reasonable after all this time.
I don't think anything you're asking is unreasonable.
Okay.
I
So
just know that I can write the board can write a letter, the board can ask Jessica to make the attorney aware of this, as she's already done, and then we can say to them, okay, we want from you a time frame. Good luck. I mean, they can give us a time frame. If I say to them, what's happened in the last 12 years? That person's probably not going to know. I don't know. I don't even know where I'd find that information. So the best we can do is to say, let's focus on this, let's get the Board of Health on it, and let's see if we can move it along.
Okay, so I would like to have copies of all the correspondence that's already happened, so that I'm abreast, and so I have a paper trail. Because right now, I'm in disbelief. Totally in disbelief. The other thing I would strenuously suggest the board take on into consideration is put no trespassing signs up there. To cover at least that little bit of whatever that affords you for some liability down the road. The other thing that I've mentioned to you out in the parking lot, that it's in all good probability, that's a 21E site.
Could be, I don't know if it is or not.
So that's another thing that maybe the town
I
would
would-
want to know about.
I could bring you back to the olden days, when I used to be on the Board of Health. And I was on the Board of Health for 7 years, and that was a property that the Board of Health spent a great deal of time at. And I would tell you that at that point, I would tell you that I don't think there is any hazardous waste or anything like that there. There was a lot of, let's face it, sewage issues and, you know, lack of appropriate attention to just regular public health issues. But there was never any property that I saw years ago where there was any kind of, you know, oil tanks that weren't exposed or anything like that. But, you know, you're right, it could be.
Well, what year was that, Warren?
Good, we're gonna go back here in time. Now, I'm gonna say probably in the 70s.
So since the 70s, I'm not sure where along the line, but there's abandoned vehicles all over the place.
Yep.
So oil,
Yep.
gasoline, all kinds of mechanical fluids
Yep, well,
that
that's
have been
true.
leaching into the ground.
It could be.
And so that's where, and plus the people were dumping over there.
Oh, you
know,
mean
I-
other people were dumping stuff over there?
I don't know who the people were. I mean, but I would see people come and go. I reported that to the police. All they wanted to know is whether if I had cameras to track it for them. I don't. So that, probably should have said that over there. But I need to have a paper trail there. You know, I mean, I really feel that that's why the letter went out to the Attorney General. My rights have been severely abused. The other thing is, I understand that that was not made part of the minutes of the meeting, the last meeting on the 7th, was it? That should be part of the minutes. That should be documented and entered into the log of the town. I'm not taking this casually. That's why the complaint went to the Attorney General.
I mean,
Rights have been severely abused. I'm not sure who's going to address it, but it would seem like it should be somebody coming from this board wanting to have some conversations and how they're going to address this for me.
well,
I haven't heard a word from the board so far. All I know is from the secretary that it wasn't made part of the minutes. And I have no idea why that would be. So that's the first piece that needs to be corrected. Second would be how it's going to get addressed. And I'd like that in writing as well.
well, I would
I'm not
I
going
would
to
tell
take
you that.
anything verbal, I want to have a written
Well,
paper trail
once you have
of
made
this whole mess.
Once you have made this complaint to the Attorney General will contact us. and make whatever, efforts to understand the complaint, understand our particular perspective regarding the complaint. So once you've made that complaint, I mean, there's a process.
The complaint's been made.
Yeah, so there's a process that happens there. We have nothing to do with it other than what the Attorney
From
General.
what I read, the first 30 days, the onus is yours. This board is to try to remedy. You might want to talk to the person who's got the complaint, not wait for the Attorney General to kick the can in your side of the court. That's just a thought. You can do whatever you want. So, obviously you function the way you want to function, but there's some serious problems here. I mean, you mentioned about the transparency on this last deal with the sewage. I don't understand why the sewer committee wasn't here tonight, trying to put forward what was going on, so the taxpayers are aware. And there's just so many questions of transparency, and this is just another one of them, about the property or properties. You say 24, 25 additional?
22, I think I just
So,
counted
what-
up, but yeah.
it's like, we need to have this addressed. We need to have a responsive government, not closing doors, making it impossible to have public comment in here. I understand that the board, you don't have the backgrounding in every aspect of whatever that is brought to you, but the onus is upon the board to familiarize themselves with it, not to close the doors so that you can't hear, so that you can't address the board. That is completely contrary to what should be happening. So not only transparency, accountability. Things that I mean, just small things, they're really tiny things. But one time, months ago, brought about the illegal dump up on Town Farm.
I don't know if you brought that to us, I didn't.
Yeah, I think it brought to your attention directly from my lips. And so the response was that the gate was going to be locked. When I informed that the gate was wide open, do you realize that the gate is still open? I mean, so accountability. I bring that for one point of accountability. So it's transparency, accountability, and being forthright, and being straight. I'm calling this board out.
I hear you.
I'm calling you out because it's failing. And it's not because of, I'm not saying it's incompetence, it's like you don't want to hear. Or when you do hear, the response comes back different than what the words were going to you. And I want to get going on being trying to think of a word. I want to have a town that all those attributes are a given. So we don't have to call out say what happened to this or what happened to that. The small thing on the door, like the door is now completely junk. After years, the door on the elevator.
Oh.
So it's like, this was brought up years and years ago, and then nothing is done. So there's no follow-through at all. It's time. It's time to have the democracy that has been being abridged here. It's time for that to end.
Well, I certainly.
I've said enough.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate your comments, and while I would like to, be able to say, we're perfect, we do everything right, I can't and wouldn't. I would tell you that I think we have similar goals. At least I can say this as an individual board member. We have similar goals. I think we should listen. I think we should be open-minded. I think we should work very hard to ensure that the things that people bring to our attention that are legitimate and reasonable are addressed. And certainly, we try very hard to do that. And obviously, I don't have a long history in this particular role. So I guess I have to say to you, well, you're from Missouri, I have to show you. I've had a long history working in public government in this town as not only a board of health, but also as your selectman. as a school employee. And so I do understand the need to provide the citizens with transparency and with hard work. And I will agree with you there, but I'm only one person on this board, and I will do my best to help to respond to citizens who have reasonable and honorable requests, and do so, I hope, in a way that is respectful, not only of the people you have to get on who's back, like when you call the Board of Health and you have them visit somebody, they're not happy about it, but that also address your concerns. I can't say I'm going to be perfect, and that you will be perfectly happy all of the time, but I will certainly make every effort to do that as an individual.
I'm grateful to hear that. I'm not sure how the other members of the board are, but it would be, I'm grateful to hear that, and I take that at its face value as de facto the truth.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sam?
You know, we're so close to the warrant, and from what I understand, we have monies to spend. Perhaps you folks can make a motion that we hire an attorney group to focus specifically on this project. It couldn't be a lot of money, but it's a logical time to do it. And I ask you, Dylan, and I ask you, Maureen, to coordinate a motion and second it and pass it so that on the warrant we put down, we're going to allocate a certain amount of money, say, heck, whatever kind of money is necessary to compensate an attorney to get to the bottom of this. If someone asks in 2017 and it still isn't getting resolved, something smells. And I would hope that you think of my suggestion, and I would hope that you, Dylan Clark, would think of my suggestion and get this done. Because I know, Dylan, you made the suggestion some time ago. I remember someplace in the minutes you recommended that the town administrator make an effort to find out what's going on. So maybe because of that, you need to support a motion to hire an attorney. We have 2 or 3 weeks before the warrant. The warrant is open now, from what I understand. Why don't we get it done instead of procrastinating and providing lip service? Because no doubt, people don't want to be here listening to this in 2023.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So what do you think of my idea, folks?
Well,
Dylan, what do you think of my idea?
I'm going to stop there for a minute. I'd like to put my own 2 cents in this before we continue on. I've listened for 10 minutes quietly now.
You have, Greg.
The fact that this has gone on since 2017 is disgusting.
2010.
2010, even worse.
Yeah.
It is frustrating, our frustration, certainly when it's dealing with, because we have no better luck dealing with the court than anybody does. And that's unfortunate. We've seen plenty of, other properties come and go for tax title seizure and things since then. So I don't know why this one's being such a burden. And I don't think, as far as putting up a fence of things, I don't know if we have the right to, unless the
Board of Health indicates.
Board of Health and/or building inspector deem it unsafe. They need to make some sort of order to the homeowner, and if it's not complied with, then we can do it and put it on their expense, I believe is the process. So we could certainly move forward with doing that. We can't just take any action on the property, it's not ours. But we can certainly have the building inspector and Board of Health inspect it, make a recommendation for safety. We can order that tonight, and we can follow through with that whenever time frame is required. There's probably going to be a couple of weeks. You have to give them notice and a chance, but 30 days, to put up, erect a fence, whatever they decide needs to be done. So if you want to take action tonight, the action we could take is direct both Board of Health and building inspector to evaluate that property and make appropriate sanctions.
I would make that a motion.
I would second that as a motion.
All right, so we have a motion to second to instruct the Board of Health and building inspector to evaluate their property and make appropriate direction to the homeowner to make it safe.
And I would also, if you would accept a friendly amendment to ensure that the individual who's very concerned about this property and is communicated with as far as when people are, when the inspections are done and what the process is at that point.
In writing, if you could.
Sure.
And that's coming from where? We need to, if
Well,
you're gonna make that statement,
we
we have to be
I mean,
directing someone within our power, which means Jessica.
Jessica And when she finds out when the inspections have happened, she would drop you an email letting you know that the inspections have occurred on those properties, and the information, they will be putting together a report. We don't see that report until, obviously, they've been there and done their work, so.
So I will be copied on that report, please?
I think you can be, I believe it's public record.
Sure, it would be.
So Dylan, do you want to second the changes to the motion for,
Yes, that's right, I'll second the amended motion.
okay, so we have motion and second to direct the inspector in Board of Health to inspect the property, make proper recommendations to make it safe to the homeowner, and direct our administrator to notify Neil Anders when such reports are complete and there's any information to pass down. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And as far as council goes, I would be against trying to hire, once again, we don't own the property.
But we already hire a separate attorney for tax sale.
Okay, I was gonna-
It's their specialty.
I was gonna
That's how
say.
much of a
What
niche that this is.
What might be useful is if that attorney would perhaps Zoom in with us one evening, just so we could ask some questions.
I could see if I could
I mean, I would suspect that's pretty easy, they don't have to drive out.
Well, yeah,
Well, they can give us insight into what the holdup is.
at least give her some sort of update that she'd be satisfied with. If you start asking her to Zoom in and sitting in our meetings at $300 or $400 an
Well, I'm
hour,
not saying it's going to
I'm
be an hour.
really, I'm hesitant to ask him to Zoom in and start just randomly paying him.
Well,
But
Well, I
we-
mean, every time we get like an update from them or request.
billable hours. Yeah. well,
But we certainly have a reason to ask some questions as to,
Bartholomew?
ask him as to what's been going on and what the holdup is, and is there any way to fast track this? In other words, if we pay for an audit, to have it surveyed, if we pay for that survey, will this speed it up?
Yeah.
And that may speed it up by years at this rate, the way it's going. And that's why I brought that up before. The survey means a lot to the land court. It's very easy to take a surveyor's
Yeah.
stamp and say, yes, I tagged it,
I
I
measured it.
staked it. You'd have to pay for stakes at that point. And if he can find pins, stakes or pins to measure by, then he can survey it. If he can't find them, he'd have to do a little more work and put those pins in. And then that certified record to the land court is gold. They can then drop it in the plans, and it supersedes everything else around it. If it overlaps a neighbor's, it overlaps a neighbor's and it wins because it's been surveyed and pinned. So that's kind of different, but that's a question the attorney can answer if that's going to be helpful or not. And if it is, we'd have to figure out what kind of expense that is. But
Okay.
as far as the rest of this list, there are a few properties that say okay, and one or two that say good. Poor and unknown is a general one. There's one of those that's already owned by the town. I've looked at that already, and it's in sad shape. And if the town does own that, we should make some effort
Absolutely.
to board up at least the front door entry, because I went there to look at it when we talked about it. And directly inside that front door, there's gaping holes in the floor. So people go in there, especially when they're at night, they're gonna fall.
Yeah.
So that property, we should take action on.
Would that be something the building inspector should follow up on?
Ask him to follow up on and recommend what we can do with it to make it safe, and we should take action on that as well.
Probably raise it and sell the property.
Yeah, I don't know if raising it's the smartest thing to do, or sell it as is and let someone else do that. But certainly, it needs to be addressed. And we certainly can, with this list, we can direct the Board of Health and Building Inspector to go evaluate these properties. I don't know how long it's gonna take them to do proper evaluations. I would think they'll spend an hour or two in each one, so they could spend, a week to do straight working on these properties, which they have other stuff to do. It's not like we can just say, go do this, and we get nothing better to do.
Okay.
But, perhaps forward this list to them,
Yep, I've already shared it.
okay, and let them know we'd like to see what they recommend for action on it. And if they need us to order that action to justify the town, we can do it. But let's get their input for how they think we should proceed before we go dictating what they should do on our behalf
Yeah.
for the rest of these properties. Fair enough? All right. Let's move on to meeting minute approvals for February 7th.
Having read and spent time with the minutes, I would move approval.
1 second, is the 7th
The last meeting.
the 7th regular session, or?
Yes, regular session right now.
Regular session.
Was this the meeting in question that Mr. Anders just spoke of,
La-
wanting to see the?
It was our last meeting.
Yep.
It was our last meeting. We had the mass discussion, and we had,
And
I
then-
think you all had you had the executive session prior to.
Yep,
Then we had mass discussion, and Mr. Andrews spoke briefly in the end about the property.
yep. And presented us with that complaint.
Yes.
Well, I think that perhaps it would be appropriate for us to amend this agenda to include some of the discussion from that meeting. So I would recommend that we table this until
Okay,
next meeting, so Sandy can revisit the recording and recommend any changes.
Of, what is it in the minutes you're concerned about that need to be amended?
he wants the complaint that was presented by Mr. Andrews at
It's
the
in
end
here.
of the meeting. It is?
It's in here.
Discussion and lives and these things.
That's all in here.
Bridging his rights and secretary's to satisfaction, and not being able to get any current changes, this is how this, it didn't say he presented us with a complaint that he's filed with the department, with the Attorney General's office.
Yeah,
Well,
it does.
It does say it, but
It's on
it's
page
also, bear in
7.
mind, it's not on our agenda. This is a public comment. It's not an
Yeah.
agenda item. There's nothing to share with people, there's nothing to do with
Oh, yes,
people,
you
there was
did.
nothing registered, there's nothing documented to share with the town.
It is in there.
It warrants no spot on here, other than the fact he was allowed to speak at public comment. If you want, if something should,
Second the
if,
motion to approve these.
okay, but in the future, if someone comes in and they register with the administrator, and we publish the documents at a time and hold discussion on it, then absolutely it's gonna be part of this
It's in there
report.
anyway,
It's-
so I move approval of the
It is in-
February 7th.
It's in there in the manner that I think is appropriate.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
mentioned how it was received.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll second the motion.
Motion second to approve minutes on February 2nd, 2022. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I would move approval of the Board of Selectmen's executive session.
Are you voting on the, did you vote on the minutes? I didn't hear you vote on
I'm
that.
sorry. Okay, call the vote.
We have two yeses to approve the minutes for
Third,
February
yes.
7th. Okay. Unanimous in that? Okay, now we'll look for the executive session motion.
Move approval of the executive session minutes.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
So we have motion and second to approve the executive session minutes as listed here as February 7th, executive session 2022. Any further discussion on that?
Those just aren't
There is a
for-
typo, it says 2021, but other than that,
And they are not for release.
Right.
All right, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
I,
And I'll abstain as I was not party to that. Correspondence, we just had the one we read was Neil's request to speak about the item we just did. Select Board Reports. Dylan, do you have anything tonight for us?
well, I just wanted to bring to folks' attention that the period to file papers to run for election in the spring town election on April 4th has passed, and I have not submitted signatures to reappear on the ballot, so I will be sitting this round out, as it were, and I look forward to hearing a spirited debate between the two gentlemen who are seeking the seat on the board.
yeah, thanks a lot, Dylan.
It's been a pleasure of a lifetime, and I'm not joking even a little bit.
It's quite the experience, and you're not out of it yet, so we won't say our parting words yet.
Yeah,
but
not yet, but.
You know,
We got more to do.
They say if you don't write your own story, someone else will write it for you. So I just wanted to say in this meeting.
There you go.
The rumors are true. I am not running for re-election, and I just wanted to explain a little bit why.
Now you're a lame duck. What'd you do that for?
Yeah, I've had a wonderful time and working for the town. I love this town. I'm not going anywhere. You're going to see me at a lot of these meetings going forward anyway. and I'm going to continue working to make this the best darn community that it can be, in just varying forms during the next year or so. So this will, I will not be on any ballot in 2022, but I don't think my story ends with this. So I thank you all for putting your faith in a local boy like me to step up and help this community out. So that's my report.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
And I'm sure we'll still see you in our meeting in 2 weeks and at our special town meeting. You got some business left to do before we let you out of
It's not
here.
over yet, but you know, the papers have been submitted to the town clerk for election, and that's on people's minds. So I just wanted to say that in a public forum like this, just so you know, people are informed.
It does make them aware that they have to learn something about the 2 new candidates to make an informed decision, and hopefully they'll pay attention to that, and we'll see what happens.
I just have one item, and that is, I continue to be concerned about the fencing that is in front of the Barre Wool that is now being, shall we say, dismantled. And I'm
Can you
going
say
to.
that again? Can you say that
I'm
again?
concerned about the fencing that is down in front of the Barre Wool Combing Company that is being dismantled or demolished at the time. It's very, very limited. They are very close to the road at this point in time. I'm hopeful that the building inspector can take another look at that and ensure that he feels it is sufficient to protect lots of kids who are going to and from. You know, they're very interested in what's happening, and they tend to get maybe a little too close to things. So if he can just take a look at that. I know, when is he back in town? Is he?
Tomorrow.
Oh, great. If he can just take a ride by, I'm just a little concerned.
Yep, fair enough. It was very nerve-wracking seeing they're up the edge of the road, and you
They're
wonder,
very close to the road.
yeah, you'd like to see it possibly shut down when they,
Yeah,
hopefully
but-
it will be shut down when they do
Yeah.
that portion. I think it's supposed to be.
Okay.
But
that'd be
that's
good.
I know that they've had police details there this week to
Oh.
make sure that if traffic needs to be stopped.
Oh, good, good. So
that they
that's
do
good.
that.
So maybe the building inspector's way ahead of me, and he'll just say to you, on it. And that'll be fine. I'm just concerned that, when I try to go down there now at least once a day just to take a look. And, I mean, it wasn't kid-proof, shall we put it that way?
Oh, for sure. I agree
Okay.
with that.
Okay, anything else? Yep. Couple things I'm concerned about. Jessica, I did ask specifically to have the camera discussion on tonight's agenda and is not on here. I'll discuss
What
my
discussion? I'm
frustrations.
sorry.
I'll discuss my frustrations that another time because we've covered this. The
What?
camera discussion.
Can't, well, you
We-
mean getting video for?
Right, we have to discuss it and decide what we're going to do formally. Jessica suggested, and I think properly so, that for now, when the deadline comes, which is in April, for recording all meetings, that they'll be done via Zoom.
Yep.
And my thought is, rather than originally I had asked her to come up with numbers, get some quotes for installing the cameras for special town meeting. And then we said, it might be better to do this at annual town meeting. And see how people do with Zoom and how that works first, before we get into spending the money. And especially with free cash and things aren't cleared up yet, better to wait till annual town meeting to do the cameras was our discussion. So we want to make sure you two both hear about that, see what you think. So the idea would be to help everyone set up Zoom the meetings, record the Zoom meetings, and then they can be posted online.
Yep.
We'll see how that goes up to town meeting. And as you recall, this bylaw, which it is a bylaw, was approved by the state, was put through without any penalty phase. And hopefully between April and June, we're going to see people abide by the requests of the town, of the citizens, and record these meetings and not have any issues, and have no need for penalty phase. But we need to start thinking out possible realistic penalties that can be done or sanctioned if they're not compliant. And about the only thing I can think of that would be reasonable would be that any meetings that aren't recorded as per the town's bylaw, the minutes in those meetings and votes of those meetings shall not count. shall be dissolved.
Well, that may be something we want to
Well,
think about.
once again, that's something the town would have to vote on,
Yeah.
and it's a very serious way to do it, but it depends how serious is the town about having these things recorded. And then we go back to, do we only record certain meetings? Do we back off at town meeting and saying record every single committee? Or do we just want to record the major committees that people follow more often, such as the select board, the planning board, the finance committee, DPW, water, sewer, things like that? You know, are people worried about what happens in a cemetery commission meeting or a Parks and Rec or Historic Society? Do they really need to have that recorded? Do they really want to pay money to record those and keep up to it? And that's up to the town to decide. But I understand the spirit of the modification to the bylaw at town meeting, that we want to just may as well record everything. But when it comes to the logistics of cameras or paying for Zoom space or recording space online, it does have a price tag to it that the town isn't aware of yet. And we do need to develop the price tag for the camera systems we discussed, which are upstairs here, 2 in the senior center, 1 at DPW, and 1 at the town hall. We discussed 5 camera systems set up, and we need to get pricing for that, and we need to, as a board, direct Jessica to get that pricing. And I have asked personally, and it hasn't happened yet, so I think we need the direction of the board to do that officially, so we can get pricing on those 5 venues that we discussed to bring to town meeting.
Well, I would make a motion that we get pricing on both options, having Zoom facilities available, as well as all of the stuff we have here, and then make a decision predicated on what we're trying to accomplish versus what it might cost us. I think doing what we do in this room, which is pretty elaborate, is very expensive. Getting a large monitor and having a computer available to any board to just run it where they want to is probably very cost effective, other than the space, paying for our Zoom.
And that storage time is limited. We don't have to, it's stored indefinitely. The written minutes are stored permanently.
Right.
The video, Jessica, you said 60 days?
6 months.
6 months, 6 months, so.
Well, that's more than enough from my perspective, but.
It is more, it's, I think, excessive, but that's what we require. But once 6 months is gone, you can roll over. So I don't know how much data that takes before we can start rolling over our space. It's gonna take a specialist that understands the compression rate, the clarity of the video and things, and
But-
how far we can get with that.
I would suspect though, with a Zoom, with a monitor, you can,
This is all, these videos are all being done, via Zoom in some way or another. Then Zoom, has licensing, like, pricing, schemes where one entity, like a municipality or a company, buys like a professional package, and that with it comes X number of licenses that, any number of boards can use a license, so, and they also do cloud hosting of the videos. So I think that it could be surprisingly easy and affordable to accomplish some of these things just with Zoom tools.
And it'd be nice to be able to present at town meeting the cost of this versus the cost of this camera setup,
Right.
and whether or not they decide to have 1 more or 2 more cameras or no cameras on all Zoom, but have some ideas of expenses we can bring to town meeting. We can put a warrant on an annual town meeting, this is to do all the cameras, and the price to do it as Zoom. And we can approve 1 or both, or a combination there. In other words, we could say, okay, 60% will be Zoom, so we'll approve 60% of the money for Zoom and 40% of the money for these. They can change those warrants, those articles on the floor, and the dollar amount to do exactly what we want. It's very easy to say to install cameras A and B and not C, D, and E. We're gonna strike those from the warrant, the bill will read as follows, and the money would read as follows. That can be adjusted on meeting floor without a lot of difficulty. But it gives the town an option for how they want to do it, and how, how serious they are about recording everything.
What I would want to have happen during the course of this is that we meet with, have a representative from every board, sit in a room and say, okay, we can do this, we can do that, and then, yes, we should get the pricing differences, and then make sure when we get to town meeting, every board has had the opportunity to say, I'm happy with this, we can deal with this, I can do with Zoom, then we can meet where we want to meet, because setting a Zoom up in any room is so easy compared to having all of the camera stuff that we have here.
Right, the expense of the cameras, the hard wiring,
Yeah,
getting in conjunction with somebody to
Right.
record it and post it is
exactly.
a lot more involved
I mean,
than
all
than
of
just
the-
hitting
all of-
record in a Zoom.
All of the state and public meetings that I'm involved in, and that's a lot at the state level, are all Zoom, all of them. And obviously, when you tune in on your computer or on your phone, whatever you tune in on, I mean, there's a gallery, and I can go to the gallery and I can see everybody who's at the meeting.
Right.
Sometimes they have everybody muted, except when they talk, their picture automatically is displayed as a big person on the thing. So, and those things are recorded and provided on YouTube, I think, for the most part. I don't know how long they're there, but I do a lot, WebEx and Zoom is my life.
Well, either way we do it, we can't just hope it's on someplace. We have to
Yeah.
make sure that we contract to have it on for the 6 months, in either way that we proceed with it.
But thank you for bringing that up.
That's why I wanted this on the agenda. I wanted to be able to discuss that. It's, special town's coming up. I decided not to put it on and try to put it on because I thought it's better to go with the Zoom for now. But I wanted us to discuss it, to be on the same sheet of music, so to speak, as we get to special, annual town meeting. And annual town meeting, now we're talking June, we're talking 4 months, we're gonna be there. And this has to be ready, hopefully at least a month before that, so we can kick it around and figure out what we're doing. I don't think we're likely to get all the boards together.
Well, I think we can get a person from each board to get in a room.
At some point, it would be unlikely to get them all together, we could try. Typically,
Well, I
other
think
boards
that's
and
all
committees,
all I can do is try. I can't make
Right.
them come, but I can't believe planning wouldn't show up. I can't believe that the other boards wouldn't show up, because they're interested in this and they want it done in a way that's, user-friendly and yet meets the requirements sort of the spirit and intent of the bylaw. I'm much more optimistic.
one would
than you.
hope. I certainly would agree that we have to at least notify them what's going on and give them the chance for some input if they'd like it. It would be awful nice if people came together about it, but I don't hold out a lot of optimism that we're going to get them all together for one discussion, but we can certainly get the input
I
as
don't want them all
it
together,
comes in.
just say send a representative, and we.
I know, that's what I mean.
And we have our tech person here, and he says, okay, this is what we can do, this is how you use, because some people don't really know how to use, Zoom to its full extent. I mean, it's pretty amazing, and maybe we can provide training for those who might be interested, because it's really quite an efficient way to operate in a virtual world.
Agreed.
I wish I had stock in it.
Well, it's never too late.
Yeah, well, I think it's almost too late now, the market has not been friendly. Whew.
Well, it should not be. It's way overpriced.
Maybe overpriced, but I was enjoying the overpriced part. Anyway, we'll move on.
Yes, we will.
I'll add to the conversation that, if constituents or residents of the town are interested in transparency in government and understanding what's going on, then it also behooves them, if they're so inspired, to reach out to some of these boards and committees as citizens and say, hey, I'm looking forward to a time when I can just stream your videos, or I can watch them on Zoom or participate however I need to. That matters to me as a resident, as a taxpayer, whatever. I think if people are very keen on having this get accomplished and having more transparency and just a more simple and modern way of running affairs in town, then a little bit of the squeaky wheel can get the grease, I think. And if I encourage anyone, if they're so moved, to reach out to all the boards and commissions as much as they want to. Everybody's email addresses are all there to be found on town.
Okay, now that you're not running, don't push this so hard. Just kidding.
All right.
I would like to see this happen. It's the thing that comes up. People have a desire to see this happen. So if we all work together, then hopefully we can overcome any sort of reluctance or hesitancy on any individuals who are, making decisions for their boards, and move forward as a unified town government.
Very
Thanks,
good.
Tony.
That's my 2 cents.
All right, Jessica, we'll move on to your administrator report now.
Okay, so I already talked a little bit about 1000 West Street and the complexity that is land court. Also, we've been talking recently about having evaluations done of all of our employees, so I have included both versions of our evaluations for management and non-management employees. It's a pretty comprehensive document that would allow department heads and their elected boards to help every employee kind of set some goals for the upcoming year. So when we reach evaluations next year, we have, something to evaluate those employees on for previously set goals. So I recommend to the select board that they request evaluations be completed during the month of March and have those evaluations submitted to my office before April 15th, which I think, gives almost 2 months to everybody to get their evaluations done. I have been working on an organization chart to determine who is responsible for conducting evaluations for each employee. And I recommend that every employee who is regularly scheduled to work in a department more than 15 hours per week to be evaluated.
But Jessica, do you feel that there's a need to have some training for people who perhaps have never done this before?
Yes, that would probably be beneficial.
Okay, maybe we can talk to our attorney, and, because there's things you shouldn't write, and there's ways you shouldn't write things,
Yeah,
because I think it's very important for those things to be done honestly, openly, and with full time and attention to, what is legally mandated in an evaluation process.
right.
May I recommend that we contact Labor Council specifically, and we set up a Zoom meeting date during the business week for all department heads and personnel that will
Good
conduct
idea,
this.
Fred.
And they can have a 30-minute or so Zoom in with the attorney, who could go through this quickly and give them some do's and don'ts.
Right.
Yeah,
Now, once again, not my idea. I was working in Groton when they had a department head Zoom about, I think it was sexual harassment or something in the
Yeah.
worst place or something. And they did that with department heads and actually mostly employees and zoomed
Yeah.
into it. And a very effective way to get
Yes,
a lot of it out. They can stop it wherever they're working, at their workplace, at their
But some of
desks.
them have never done an evaluation on anybody, ever.
right. And it's not only just department heads, that's also the elected boards that oversee certain departments that are also responsible
Like
for
us.
doing evaluations.
And I would suggest that let's not get too deep into it yet. Well, if you want, we'll go over these this week. So next Monday, if we have any questions or concerns, we can address them next Monday with Jessica, but then she doesn't have to go through and explain it. We're all capable of reading the questions
Right.
and what it's doing. And we'll just also touch on this next Monday briefly as well. If we have any questions or misunderstandings that we don't understand, we could bring them up then, rather than
Yeah.
go through all the stuff tonight on it.
Right.
If that's all right with you?
If anybody wants to email me questions too, that would be great. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to be here next Monday. I
Okay,
do have another
Bye,
commitment,
all.
so.
bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, if we do have any notes, we can always email, like I said, or Sandy can bring them forward on Tuesday or something. or-
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really just important, as long as we have the warrant ready to sign Monday, we can get it signed so it's posted. Is
For
that,
2 weeks.
right, so if we post it Tuesday morning, that's good for 2 weeks from Tuesday of the night, correct?
Yep,
I believe?
yep.
So, well, it'll be 3 weeks at that point, because we're pushing it off another week, right?
Oh, it would be 2 weeks
Right.
because of, February is a short month, so.
And
Yeah.
I think that, it's a very comprehensive evaluation, and for some individuals, I think a little bit beyond what we could have. I mean, if you're the person who is the truck driver at DPW, I can't even fathom. I mean, do you have any, some of this stuff,
Some of it's extensive.
it's excessive, so we may want to
Right.
tool that.
Right, we'll read through that, and then
But I
maybe
can't
things.
imagine DPW person, Jay or others having the time to really get people to do this self-appraisal and so forth.
Right, so
we
like I
might as well
said,
simplify
let's,
it for some
we'll hold
people.
that off till next week.
Yeah.
It may be possible that we leave portions up to department head discretion on what they're going to use or not use in the evaluation.
I think that's fair.
This would be sort of probably a recommended form.
Yeah.
And we'd like them to use X percentage of the
Yeah,
questions. And, you know, we'll figure that out next week.
okay.
So the other thing that came up recently is that our risk management person from our insurance company came to my office on Wednesday and talked to me about OSHA audits that the state is going to be conducting over the next couple of months. So we aren't sure when they're going to come to Barre, but I know that they've started in the eastern part of the state, so they're going to kind of make their way out to Barre in the western part of the state, probably within the next 6 months. And this is going to become an annual thing that the state is doing to make sure that all cities and towns are complying with all expected OSHA requirements and training and have the proper documentation on it, which this year is just kind of an advisory year, so they're gonna come through and they're not going to go, you know, to the fullest extent as far as punishment goes, but they're gonna note where towns are falling short on their OSHA compliance, which I think at the end of the day could really benefit the community when we think about how serious OSHA violations can be.
This is a change of business, so I believe that all town and government entities have been exempt from OSHA
Yeah,
indefinitely until now, so I've never heard of them enforcing OSHA standards on municipalities.
I mean,
It's
the schools
never
are the same way, they're exempt.
always been exempt, so this must reflect a change in state law. If they, you know, obviously coming out and giving warnings is all they could do.
Yeah.
Um,
Can you check with Mass Municipal as to
Yep.
what they think the reason is for this and how the audits are going and what we should do there?
Right, so
Right.
this is where, so our insurance company is through Mass Municipal Association,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's who I'm advised by. And so he supplied me with a bunch of different resources, which I've sent out to both the fire chiefs and the DPW superintendent, because those are the only departments that it affects. In our community, it does affect the schools, but obviously they're in a different boat than we are.
Yeah.
So,
Be curious to see what changed though and why it's suddenly
Yeah.
going to affect us, because
Accidents, maybe.
I was gonna just
I
say.
I don't know.
I don't
It's
either.
very strange. I remember even back when I was in the military and working full-time at Devon's, you know,
Yeah.
OSHA, we did training in safety training, but OSHA did
OSHA.
not matter because they
Yeah.
had no authority there.
Right, so.
So it's
okay.
strange.
Yeah, so something changed, but we received a checklist that the department heads can follow to make sure that they have the proper documentation for their trainings. And then we also received a handout that shows specifically what department is responsible for what, specific OSHA training, so like bloodborne pathogens and are more applicable to the EMS and the police department more so than the DPW and water and sewer. So, and then our third handout that we received from them was just a comprehensive guide on all of the OSHA required trainings that somebody could get and resources that show like what is considered an acceptable form of training. So when I spoke with the police chief today about it, they were concerned because they've never been to like a so-called specific OSHA training, but in their other training, like first responder training, the academy that they go through, they do receive OSHA, level type training that will qualify to appease this. But it's not just like documentation to show that they are following the programs and the trainings that they need to, but it's also to do, a physical audit to make sure that the working conditions don't violate OSHA, so.
If I would like to find a way, whether it be by motion and so forth, to ensure that the individual department heads that are affected understand that the Board of Selectmen know about this and have an expectation that they need to follow the procedures, and if they need help or assistance, that they
I
contact us.
do seem to recall a couple of years ago, we did talk about OSHA as far as training for individuals,
Yeah.
safety training in job sites. Once again, not because it was a requirement, but there were recommendations and there were ways to do training. So when we talk about OSHA, there's clearly bloodborne pathogens and
Yeah.
actions taken with the PPE for employees versus procedures on how things are done safely. You know, trenching with protection in the trenches and such, and gas meters and
Right.
over certain depths. But it also goes into types of safety equipment,
I know.
use of ladders, use of certain types of shoes,
Harnesses,
where you
shoes.
can't be electrical cord requirements and not, you know, things that are
Well,
violations for courts. They cover such a plethora of things. It sounds like, as I recall last time, they were just focusing on employee safety training.
yeah.
And that may be all they're after again, or they may be on more comprehensive now. But
It seemed to be a pretty comprehensive
So-
audit that they're trying to,
What I don't want to have happen
I'd like to
is-
find out to what end,
Yeah,
and,
But I don't want the people to sort of be out of the loop, because I could see if DPW doesn't get an official sort of notification from us, it's safe for me to say that, they would say, what OSHA thing? I just want to make sure that people know that this is important and that we're here to help and support, because could be a lot more work for them.
right.
Well, I see you said you notified the chiefs as well as the DPW superintendent. How did you notify them?
By email.
Did you CC us on those emails? Okay. I'd like to make a motion this evening that we direct Jessica, whenever she contacts department heads for issues, that the select board is all CC'd in those. That's also a discussion we had, I think, this week, that I think my opinion is less effective than the board's vote. So I'd have a motion that we direct her to CC us in further.
I would
I'll
second that.
I'll second that
Okay.
motion.
Motion is second to direct Jessica to CC us in emails to department heads.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You know, as we see with the last issue that we discussed, with the whole miscommunication in the sewer, it looks like emails were sent by our office, as indicated, down to DPW general email. And I don't know what happened, so I don't know if, you know, perhaps Shannon doesn't read those, figuring, well, that's email for DPW, it's not hers to read. Perhaps she just feels like they don't have to be forwarded, she assumes that they're getting the same things, which you'd see the CC if they did. I can't begin to guess, I'm not gonna guess where the shortfall happens. And as we discussed at the DPW meeting, I don't wanna have anyone pointing fingers or having issues. It's done, it's gone.
Right.
We need to find a way to do it differently. So I think if Jessica does CC us, it certainly makes sure we're informed.
Yeah.
It makes sure she's covered to say, well, they've got it too, so you
Yeah.
can't say you didn't receive this. And it also puts anyone knows it does get it, you can't ignore it and pretend you didn't get it, because you know,
'Cause
dang
everybody
well,
else
we
has
get
got
it
it.
at the same time. So CC's a great thing. I would caution the select board members, when we respond to emails, be careful when you CC versus respond directly to somebody, because we don't want to open dialogues. If Jessica sends something out to the entire board, if you reply, I'd strongly encourage you to reply directly to her, not to the whole list,
Exactly,
because that indicates a dialogue between the board, which is not a public meeting.
exactly.
So just,
I'm with you on that.
when we start the CCing, I just hope everyone understands there's a way we have to respond. It can and can't respond to that. We can respond individually to anyone, but not to the group where it comes back to one another. That's all. Unless it's someone saying, hey, can we meet at a different time in this meeting? We can have a conversation about a meeting, changing a date or changing a time. If there's a request before a meeting, that's fine. But that's about the extent of it. Something on the agenda. If you want items on the agenda, you just direct Jessica to put it on the agenda. That doesn't need my approval. But that'll clean that up. Sorry, Jess, go ahead. I'm going to keep butting in, we have to, but I think we're getting...
Yeah, that's fine. So something that's not in this report that came up, to my attention this morning is that Felton Field, there was some vandalism.
Yes.
At their concession stand. Over the weekend, the police department is very close to finding, out who is responsible for that damage, but nevertheless, we do have insurance coverage for the damages. So I will be speaking with the Felton Field Commission again tomorrow, to update them on the, you know, what we need to do to file an insurance claim, and go forward with getting some repairs done down there.
I have been following that on Facebook for some, and Margot has asked people, you know, people are volunteering to donate time and materials already.
That's very nice.
She said, hold off, let's see if insurance has it. And I said, I want to talk to Jessica about it. I was going to say, I said, you know, Monday. Then she said, Monday's a holiday. I said, okay, today. But, you know,
if we have a deductible?
but just wanted to find out what we had
That's
for
something
insurance.
that I need to, I mean, we do have a deductible. What it is, I'm not sure off the top of my head for like a building related,
Well,
issue.
so we need to find out, you know, how much your damages are, how much your deductible is. It may not be
It
worth
may not
putting,
be worth
may
it,
not be
yeah.
worth putting a claim in,
Yeah.
because when you put claims in, it can also raise
Yeah.
your premium, so.
Mhm.
You know, if there's 11,000 damage and a 10,000 deductible, then we're just gonna, well, it depends what they
Well,
lost. They
the
talk about they
replace-
lost equipment as well
They
inside.
did, yes, they did.
Yeah, the
So-
replacement cost for the building is $5,500, so if it's $11,000 of damage,
Well, I
Well,
don't,
yeah.
I don't, but.
No, but it's crazy that, you know, to build something simple now.
I
You're-
know.
I swear I just saw it, you know, 3/4 plywood, I've been paying about $70 for a sheet of, not of a sanded B sand and not an A quality, but a patched and sanded sheet, $70. And I just saw plywood sheathing at $70, which is half inch, just because it's in such high demand.
Right.
And a part of this is the whole shipping container thing, and
Yeah.
part of this will be the trucking issue right now.
Yeah.
Most of our plywood comes from Canada,
Oh,
so nothing's coming down
yeah.
anytime soon.
Red
You
to-
know.
Red tomato issue?
Yep, so the last thing that I have to report on is a red tomato issue, and our attorney has recommended that we don't move forward with the hearing, since the business owner has been working to correct the issues presented to him by the building inspector and fire inspector, and he has 30 days to resolve those issues. And it has not been 30 days since they've, you know, issued the letter and have been looking for some kind of resolution, but in the event that the issues are not resolved, both the building inspector and fire inspector both have methods of recourse. And so the select board should abstain from any disciplinary hearings at this time.
What do they say about liquor licenses, and, or does the state say about liquor licenses to places that don't meet public safety standards?
Well, the board, you know, has the ability to revoke a liquor license after a due process.
Which should be in a hearing.
Yep.
Which is why I wanted a hearing. There are other issues there, such as the rear deck and stairs. The second fire egress is in non-working, non-functional condition. It's been that way for over a year. It's far beyond the 30 days. They make no effort to repair it.
This is the landlord, or do you think it's the,
It doesn't matter.
oh, it doesn't?
The tenant, if the landlord doesn't fix it, has every right in Massachusetts laws and land court to make the repair and withhold it from his rent. If you notify the landlord, especially with the building inspector's demand that it be fixed, if the landlord doesn't take care of it, the tenant has, and I believe there's a 2-week, there's a finite timeline, that if the landlord doesn't respond and repair it in that timeline, the tenant has every right to hire somebody to make the proper repairs and withhold that money from his rent. That's up to that person, his attorney, to work out, not the town. But for it to sit for a year and be not responded to is not right.
I don't know if that is the case.
Well, I don't know if they fix it at this point, but that's what I've been told before.
Oh,
That's
okay.
why I wanted to bring all the stuff at a hearing and have the ability to make consequences if we need to, if those things aren't being addressed. I don't want to continue to give a liquor license to a property that doesn't meet public safety
Well, I
minimum levels.
I hear you, but I would like to know from the building inspector and the fire inspector, they've made these recommendations and what has happened, before we go too much further down the road of a hearing. And let's see if there's been effort. I don't know about the business that much. I don't know about the property. I
Well, it
mean,
was
I'll-
after the fire a few weeks
Yeah,
ago.
right.
There
I
was
knew that.
concerns by the fire
Yeah.
department and the
Yeah.
condition of some smoke detectors,
Right.
why they hadn't gone off.
Yeah.
Without trying to get into the whole report, which we've all read, they did issue a list of things they wanted the business owner to comply with, to be recertified, to make sure the ventilation system was working, the Ansel system was working, the fire detection and fire reporting systems were all working. They did have all those things repaired and or inspected to become compliant. They were also inspected by the town, and they brought all those aspects of the
Oh,
building
okay.
up to public safety standards, and they've been allowed to reopen. Other issues that the building inspector had, like I said, were that deck. I don't know the status of the rear stairs. There had been other, well, I'm not gonna get into too much tonight because we're not having a hearing on it, but there have been other issues that I'd like to see the building inspector be happy with, and if he's not made happy with these things, I think the board has an obligation to make sure that any other business in town that is getting a license to serve alcohol from us at least meets the minimum public safety standards of the town. And when one doesn't, it's telling all of them, hey, you don't have to meet the standards, you gotta get your liquor license anyways. And that shouldn't be the case.
Well,
Places should absolutely meet the minimum public safety standards
well, I think-
if they
I
can
think
gonna
that
have a
we
liquor
should
license from
ask
us.
perhaps for an update, or an updated report from the building inspector and fire inspector on these issues, and see what they say. If they say they're making, really good progress and they are addressing the issues and so forth, I hate to, if they're landlord issues, that the business would be victimized.
The victim is rights in land court in court. If the landlord doesn't take care of the property, they have absolute rights. And it's, if that means they need to be diligent and read the laws on it, which, believe me, I've done many times in different issues for different reasons over the years, being a landlord, being a tenant, helping friends who are tenants, I understand a lot of how this proceeds and how it can proceed. I would doubt that a business specifically has much different rights than an individual as far as a tenant goes, but I can assure you, as far as a tenant goes, if you call your landlord and say, my door lock is broken, it doesn't work, I need it fixed, if he doesn't come in a certainly timely manner, which I'm not gonna try to guess the time without looking it up, you could hire someone and have it fixed. And that money is withheld from your rent in the portion of whatever bill that you've paid. And your canceled check is representing part of your payment
Well,
for
I
that
mean,
month.
if they're making good
It's-
progress on the things that they've been cited for.
Those were absolutely fixed before they could reopen,
Okay,
and they were open
and so
before
if there's an egress issue.
the other week.
I mean, we have to ask for some information as to, is the landlord making efforts to address that? I don't know.
As of when I talked to the building inspector, that issue had been outstanding for quite a while.
Okay. And
So
he
I don't
hasn't
know,
gotten any
I
fines or
don't
anything?
know if they've made, I haven't talked to them since, if they've made any since then, but since when the last meeting, part of why I was asking about notifying them and having a hearing for such was because that's one of the things I want to discuss with them, which we can't do until we have a hearing with them. And discuss that, and I don't want to take anyone's liquor license away. I don't want to take any harm to any
Well, I mean,
business.
If it's an
But-
egress issue and it's a landlord issue, why would we take the liquor license away from the business?
Because the business has avenues to fix the problem for public safety, and they're refusing to.
Well, what avenues do they have?
Fix the stairs.
They should fix the stairs, not the
Fix the
landlord.
stair and take it back out of the rent. They're gonna fix the stairs for
Oh,
$500.
I see what
If your
you mean.
rent's $1,500 and the stairs cost $500 to fix, and the landlord gets $1,000 rent and a bill for $500 for the stairs that you
Well, the
pay.
legal counsel disagrees with us to move forward at this particular time, so I would tend to err on the side of their recommendation. And, because I don't think there was any issue listed on that thing that we read about the egress upstairs, or on the fire escape, whatever it is.
It's downstairs, it's the back exit to the building.
Oh, okay.
It should be, I have to go back through it, should be listed in the building inspectors. It was in his,
It may have.
it was in his annual, there's, I want to say it was an annual or biannual report. This is a timely report he did that came up and it hasn't been taken care of since.
Well,
But anyways, right. What did council tell us, what's the length of notification we need to give them beforehand?
Well, if you're doing a hearing, it's 2 weeks.
We need 2 weeks for a hearing. And we do have the right to revoke liquor licenses. Do we have the right to revoke business licenses?
Business licenses? Well,
Common victual licenses, do we?
I would
Oh,
suspect,
comment,
I would suspect we have the right. However, I would suspect that the due diligence that is necessary on our end is pretty extraordinary. To say to someone, we're taking away your livelihood, we're taking away a liquor license, which is important to, obviously, the sustenance of this business. And so I really hesitate to have this conversation like this is a willy-nilly thing that we're just prepared to do because you say,
I'm not at all stating that's a fact. I'm trying to make sure that I understand what we can and can't do for sanctions if we have a business that won't comply with public safety.
well,
Public safety has to come first here. Before someone can make a profit off anyone in this town, it has to be done so in a safe manner.
well, you indicate that they have taken care of everything and the business has been reopened.
They've
You're
taken care,
talking
they've
about-
taken care of things that the fire department, and
made
the
note
building
of.
inspector shut them down for specifically,
Okay.
yes. There are other issues with the building that were called to my attention I don't know the status of, and I can find out the status of those and put a timer on it
Well,
and
what
and see.
what I want is the building inspector as our representative and with the, hopefully, the legal constituted responsibilities to do this, to make such a report, to recommend such action. Because if he has other things he can do, they can be fined, they can be cited. they
Well,
can be-
that's the other question. Can the building inspector fine? Can the building inspector fine the building owner instead of just the tenant? And I don't know where that lies at. These are all things we need to investigate because this is coming up once now. What if this becomes an occurrence in other places? We need to learn how we can proceed.
Okay, well, if that's.
And we
the-
can't learn how we proceed unless we ask these questions that sound horrible and mean, but
Well,
I need to know if we can take a
well,
liquor license. I do
just
need to know if we
think
can
are
deny a
By
license.
doing it this way in public session, we are casting aspersions on this business. And I don't think that's fair. I think that there were issues of concern that have been remediated, okay? You bring up new things about some egress thing that may or may not be the business's responsibility or the, landlord's responsibility. But anyway, you're right to say it needs to be addressed. But I would guarantee there are other, people who are businesses within the community who are listening to us thinking we're out of our minds without at least
I
having.
would certainly hope not. I've
Well, to make the response that we're making about, okay, let's pull their business license, pull their,
Absolutely not. I have asked, let's be very clear. I've asked that if they are not up to public safety standards, what actions we have, what recourses we have at our ability, at our fingertips to do. There are things that could be considered if people don't want to comply. I've never indicated we should take their liquor, or we should take their business, or that we should fine them. I have said that for a fact, the building inspector has told me there's been an issue with the back staircase. And, right, is it going to be landlord? Is it going to be tenant? Are there actions we can take? And the next questions I need to ask is what actions can we take against a landlord with the building that's insufficient? Do we have actions we can do on that behalf?
well, I think-
This isn't, once again, saying we should, but this is something we
Well, I
have
think
to
it's a-
learn and educate ourselves
Well, I
on.
think this is a question for our attorney that could walk through every question you just had in a generic fashion. What are our obligations and responsibilities as a select board? Where does the building inspector's, power end? Where is the fire inspector? I think they got a lot of power. And so what can they do? What citations do they list? And, where do we come in and how do we operate? Because this is an issue that has been, you raises questions. But I don't think we should.
Well, as
have-
far as all the issues that shut them down,
Yeah,
those have been taken care of.
okay.
They have brought in professional companies. They were tasked with like I said, the ANSEL, which is a fire
Yeah,
suppression
right.
system,
Yep.
the fire alarm indicator,
Right.
and the fire detection
And
as far as that.
appropriate
So detection,
response.
protection, indicator, and vent hood have all been done, all been professionally serviced and inspected and cleared, and have been cleared by the town inspection services, both fire and building inspector, and they've been fully approved to reopen the business, absolutely.
Okay, so the process currently works without us doing anything, right? So I say let the process work, and when it doesn't work, we have to get rid of the fire inspector. The building inspector.
Right, and depending on the
It seems like
severity
it
of this is, let's say, the ABC Umbrella Company downtown, that's adjoined to 6 or 8 family units overhead and 12 more beside them in one block building, decides they're going to shut off the smoke detection system because it keeps going off,
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
and the structure fire comes in overnight,
Yeah.
which happens to get away from somebody,
Yeah.
and it kills everybody in said building.
Right.
If we're lucky, the fire snuffs itself out, the building's full of smoke, a fire alarm on the apartment side might go off, and the fire department would find covered smoke detectors, and smoke, and the fire's already extinguished itself for lack of oxygen, whatever purposes, and no one dies. Not of asphyxiation, not of carbon monoxide poisoning, which are both highly likely in that case, and luckily, not from a god-awful fire that spreads through a blockhouse building
Right.
very rapidly.
Right.
We need to know that we have actions we can take. The fact that nothing happened and no one gets hurt, so when the umbrella company has this fire, thank goodness a fire went out and no one got hurt, by sheer luck. No one got killed, by sheer luck. And that company, that umbrella company, should we or should we not sanction them? Should they not have some sort
Well,
of
Greg,
punishment
I'm gonna bring up
for that
something
type of
in the-
life safety, neglectful
Okay,
life
let me-
safety
let
issue
me
with the
just
town?
bring it- Before we go in and tromp on this idea, understand that you have rental properties in this community that are so woefully inappropriate for children to live in, and nobody does a damn thing about them. And so I'm happy, if you want to get on this, let's go, because we got a
If-
lot of work to do.
If people want to bring forward concerns of their rental conditions, that's why we have a Board of Health and we have a building inspector, as we discussed in this list. They need to be, the services need to be called, and you can certainly, and I've told other people, friends of mine that were tenants that had issues with their landlords, you know, this is a violation, that's a violation. I'd recommend you call the local Board of Health and Building Inspector, or for this, a fire inspector, and have these complaints made, and they can bring them to your landlord. And until those complaints are fixed, they don't pay rent. That's the law for tenants in residential side. I don't know how it is in the business side. But those people ask because they're not just sitting there going, oh, this is awful. They're trying to figure out what to do about it. And people need to take some proactiveness. We can't know everything's going on in town and figure out, and we don't have time to figure out how to fix everything in town. But we can take action, and when people reach out and ask for help and they have a legitimate issue, we can take action. And it starts with, forget red tomato as an issue. I need to know, we need to give somebody 2 weeks' notice to have a hearing about their properties. That's good to know. What we can have for repercussions against businesses, and I need to know what kind of repercussions the board can take against building owners.
I think it's very limited, because that would be the role of the building inspector.
Right, now, former building inspector had directed this board before, if you want things done, we had to direct her to go do it.
Oh.
So she, I'm telling you as a fact, our former building inspector, when this board
Right.
directed her with concerns about a specific property, she said, if you guys are gonna direct me to go do things, I'll go do it. But she had no intention of inspecting things and taking any action in her own hand. The property in question is something, she signed off on something that was horribly off the documents that it was, a permit taken out for. The load-bearing wall in the house was removed. It was sitting on stilts, literally. It was disgusting, and she go, I don't see anything wrong with it, because she'd already signed off on it.
Well, I think we
So she didn't want to go back
I think we have
and,
to
you
be
know.
careful about casting aspersions on, past employees.
No, we had this discussion in public,
Well,
and then her and I had a discussion in
I'm-
private.
I'm just, always cautious about casting aspersions, whether it be on a business, whether it be on an individual, whether it even be on a landlord, until such time as the building inspector has gone through all of his responsibilities or hers, the fire inspector has done that, and if the person is responding and fixing it, I don't have a problem with that. I think that's the course of action that needs
Right.
to be taken. And so,
But in the
I-
case of this umbrella company I'm talking about, the umbrella company willfully disengaged their protection systems, knowing they put the lives of probably 40 people in jeopardy. So what if they fix it when we caught them? So someone murdered 3 people, we didn't catch him.
well,
We caught him trying to murder the
I would
4th,
just-
but
I
he
would just
didn't,
say-
so that's
I would
okay.
just say,
The,
if they did that, we should file a criminal complaint. Quite frankly, if you're so sure that that was done with, malice of intent, that they didn't care about it, fire a criminal
The
complaint.
problem is, I think when anyone like at the umbrella company I'm talking about, when they cover a smoke detector, I don't think it's malice of intent to kill anybody. I think it's negligence. They don't want to be bothered with another
Well,
call from the fire
it's-
department because they keep setting it off, because
That's
they,
called a civil violation,
The-
and
the-
still is court ready.
the action they keep doing down the umbrella company when they're heating up a certain glue, it keeps setting off the smoke
Yeah,
detector. So rather than do it outside or under a different
Yeah.
vent fan, they keep doing the same thing and sets the smoke detector off. So rather than change their behavior, what they've done down there is they suppress the smoke system by covering up the detector heads.
I agree with you that that is
And
dead
that's what
wrong.
caused that place, that
To have
umbrella
smoke.
company to smoke out.
Yeah.
And that's a negligent act. I don't think they're trying to kill anybody, but the rules are there and those fire protections are there for a reason. And public safety
I don't
is,
disagree with you on that. I just indicate to you that some of this is hearsay, some of it is real. If we're gonna take this kind of action, this is serious business, and we need to be legally appropriate. We need to have legal guidance through this process, because what we're standing here or sitting here saying, well, let's take a look at can we just stop their businesses? Can we just do, I mean.
I'm trying to find out what we can and can't do, yes.
I think that
Not in regards to this business here.
But I
This
think-
business fixed their
But I
problems.
think that that's a conversation we
This
should
business
have,
fixed their issues, and I've talked to both the fire department and the building
and
inspector.
you were right to do that.
And both of them said they would never recommend sanctioning the licenses of the
Yeah.
company. So even if we would have if we decided to have a hearing on it, I don't think it was gonna be my recommendation to sanction anything, but to find out what they're doing about fixing any remaining issues.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't have that discussion without a hearing to see what's left for the remaining issues.
My only
So-
concern would be, I bet you there's a whole bunch of stuff that people have been cited for, maybe not this significant, okay? That they've been cited for, they haven't, the landlords haven't taken care of it. The people who are renting don't want to because they don't know where else they live if they didn't have this opportunity. And quite frankly, we either have to do it to every every building inspected and all of that. I just think.
That's a cop-out, Maureen. When we have something that happens in front of us and we found it and it's right in our face, we can't ignore it and say, well, I'm sure it happens everywhere, so
Well,
we're gonna ignore it.
I'm gonna tell you,
But
I want to ask you to take a drive around with me, okay? And I'm going to show you some places that are inhabited by children and families and so forth. And I don't know if the building inspector drives by and feels any that he should maybe
Ask
take
him.
a look-see. Well,
call him and ask him.
I have asked that the building inspector visit two particular areas. I don't think he's done it. I think the Board of Health finally followed up on one of those properties.
But that's something you bring to the board and we will direct him as our employee to do it.
Yeah, well, I'm just
One of
saying-
us can't, but the board can.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
So if you
don't have
want,
to be, doing the businesses is easy, doing this and that is easy.
I know,
But there's so many places in our community where people with limited resources are really victimized by,
absolutely. And the courts are just as bad. Somebody gets a completely false charge thrown against them in court, and what can you do? Unless you have money, good luck fighting with a public defender. You
Yeah,
gotta
I
do
hear
stuff,
you,
you
I
gotta
hear
do
you.
it all on your own.
well, I have no
And the
problem
court
with,
says, hey, we'll let you plea bargain
I
it.
have no-
Just say you're guilty and have a
I-
criminal record for this, and
I have no problem with
You know.
finding out what our obligations are as a board after the building inspector and fire inspector do their thing. I agree with you that, okay,
I
I
would-
just don't want to point at one particular
I'm not.
organization at this point and say, okay, we're going after
No.
them because they did this and they'll be an example.
I'm not going after them. Let's be very clear. I'm not going after them. I'm not saying we should
We're not
take
getting
any of the
into
licenses.
this.
I got no intention of doing that. The occurrence here has opened up, and I've talked about this in the past when things I brought to the board. And people, why are you bringing this up now? I said, because it's been brought to my attention. Now that it's brought to my attention, I can't ignore the fact that this does occur. And when it does occur, we need to know what we can and can't, should and shouldn't do. So we know what we can do. Both Building and Fire Commission would recommend we don't do either, because they did comply and they fixed what they could. And one of those commissions has expressed frustration to me without getting the stairs fixed. In order to do that, we're gonna probably need to have a hearing in which we could notify the building owner and the tenant about the town's problem with the stairs and figure out how they're gonna take care of it. And at that point, then you can figure out what fines can be levied by building. And what we would ask the building to levy if they don't start taking care of
Well,
things, and who's gonna be responsible for it.
I can't believe.
But
the
that all
building-
would happen at a hearing.
I don't understand why we'd have to have a hearing when your building inspector, unless the building inspector comes to me and he said, I have cited this person, they have paid these fines, they still won't fix this.
He's come to me and said that.
Well, he's just talking to an individual. Get him in here and talk to the board.
If need be, he will.
Good.
But this is why I said we should have a discussion on it. We'd bring all the parties involved in and have a discussion about it. I have not recommend pulling their liquor license. I have not recommend pulling the building license. I am frustrated that when certain things can happen, as the umbrella company, I stated that that company never received any sort of repercussion for their
Yeah.
negligent act, willfully negligent act of disabling smoke system, which could have cost the potentially lives of many people. And there was no repercussion other than, well, put it back how it was and we'll forget about it. That's not, you know.
Well, that's
I
why
I would think, I would
that's why
think,
there's fines and stuff.
I would think if a student had a big paper to write at school and they plagiarized the whole thing 100%, they'd get expelled.
It's just
They-
not
they-
expelled, it's just a zero.
But they wouldn't say, you know what? We caught you. Why don't you go ahead and rewrite it and we'll just forget about it. There's a repercussion for that act.
I agree.
No one died, no one got hurt.
Well, we have
But-
citations and fines,
Right.
which I guess have happened, I think, right? I don't know.
Citations,
they-
yes, and the shutdown was the only, the penalty they suffered for that. But I wanted a chance to talk about it, and we'll see if the building inspector isn't satisfied with
Yeah.
the repair of the stairs, I will ask him to join us.
Yeah,
And then we'll have a discussion in the meeting as to, but once again, if we're going to have the discussion with him joining us, I believe, or this is what I was trying to find out before, are we obligated to have any building owner and tenant in if we're going to have that discussion about those stairs?
probably.
So if we're going to bring the building inspector in for
Well,
discussion,
Well, I would suspect that if this board were to say to the building inspector, what are the significant problems that aren't being addressed? And we were to send a nasty letter first and give them 2 weeks, 14 days to comply.
there's
Then
no reason to be nasty, but certainly, you know what I mean? I'm just be careful how we phrase things. Certainly send a letter that informs them that
Yeah.
there can be action taken if they don't have these
Yeah.
things repaired in a timely manner. But once again, can we even do that and have that discussion without informing them of a hearing?
Well, I think-
And
I think
this
what-
is the
I think
direction
what
we're
we-
trying to get from the council about this.
Well, the council said, don't make a precedent because, to avoid creating a precedent, and we shouldn't be doing
Right.
disciplinary hearings until the rest of it's been exhausted, till the citations have been ignored, till the fines have not been paid, and then, yeah, we should take action, is some of the things that you've described. But
So-
still, that's done. I mean, we're gonna argue about this, and ultimately we'll come to some reasonable.
No, we're not arguing about it, we're just trying to point out the sides of it. Yeah, I want you to understand that I'm not trying to say sanction against them. I'm trying to make sure we need to understand this process better
Okay,
as a
well,
board.
that's entirely.
Especially
different.
now that we're talking about 1,000 West Street, and we're talking about our list of properties that we
Yeah.
may have to start pursuing similar issues with landlords and/or tenants
Yeah.
as we go. And when you have children involved, do we want to be the ones stepping out and not contacting DSS? Because you know what they do? They yank the kids away from the parents. And I don't think that's helpful.
What, do they yank the kids away from the parents?
If the parents are doing the best they can to rent, and the landlord won't fix things and the house is
Oh.
decrepit, if we notify DSS to come in and look at it, they're just gonna take the kids out of there until it's all fixed.
Well,
And if it's a sticky wicket to get into that,
yeah. well,
on that end.
yeah.
When you talk about disposition of children, there's only one place that rightfully goes. And I don't think that's
Well, it's
the
the
avenue.
Department of Children and Families, it's not DSS, it's the Department of Children and Families.
DCF.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something we want to get involved in.
Well,
But as far as conditions of the property and being up to the town in the state building code, we could absolutely get into that.
well, I would tell you that.
the Board of Health-
If we feel.
The Board of Health is the one that would evaluate whether or not they think DCF needs to be involved
Okay.
at that point.
But yeah, but we can't ignore
no.
those situations.
We should not, just as we should
That's
not
why
ignore,
we have a Board of Health.
just as we should ignore the umbrella company that had that
Right.
that fire issue. They're long defunct and out of business, so it doesn't matter, but, when those things come up, you'd like to be able to address them in some manner.
Okay, Greg. Hey, Dylan, aren't you gonna miss this?
No, he's not. All right. Jessica, is that it? You had enough?
That's all for tonight.
But let's be clear. The Red Tomato did fix all of their issues. They had all their inspections done. They have the permits. They are open. They are doing business as usual in the appropriate and proper manner.
Thank you.
Be very clear about that.
Okay.
I wanted to get the discussion for more of a,
Yeah, I move we adjourn.
We still have a short executive session.
Oh, we do? Okay. I did see that on the agenda.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make a motion, we move to executive session Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate.
Second?
Motion is second to move into executive session. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please. All those in favor?
Marshall, yes?
Mark, yes.
O'Sullivan, yes.